Dr. Connor's bio as well. Dr. Eddie M. Connor Jr. is from Detroit, Michigan, by way of Kingston, Jamaica. Now, with both of you, we have some commonalities. And Dr. Connor, I'll talk about the Kingston, Jamaica one in a minute. He is an author, international speaker, college professor, mentor, political advisor, teacher, and radio TV correspondent. Eddie was raised in a divorced household by his mother, who instilled in him lifelong values. Here comes some of the struggles. At the age of 15, Eddie faced his greatest challenge, being diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Eddie endured chemotherapy, radiation, and hair loss. The pain of his biological father not visiting him in the hospital almost made him give up. Through faith in God, perseverance, and persistence, he triumphed and beat cancer. All right. Against all odds, Eddie overcame tremendous obstacles, even when people didn't believe in his will to live. Eddie's life is a testimony of the strength to live through dying places. He shares his story as a best-selling author of 6 books and encourages others to discover their purpose. Dr. Eddie is a recipient of numerous awards and has been featured via ABC News, BET, CBS, Fox News, NBC, PBS, TCT, The Steve Harvey TV Show, The Tom Joyner Show, The Word Network, USA Today, and many other media outlets. Dr. Connor is a contributing writer for the Michigan Chronicle and was featured in the acclaimed BET documentary, It Takes a Village to Raise Detroit. Dr. Connor, welcome to the Reading Circle microphone.
Hey, I'm glad to be here, Mr. Medley. And, of course, also to your guest, Mr. Kevin Brown. Is just also a great opportunity to be here this morning, give you some morning manna, rise and shine. So,
well, I know that's right. And in terms of just overcoming the odds at such a young age, because that's what Kevin and I was talking about. Because in Kevin's story, he really didn't have the opportunity to be a child in terms of how we visualize childhood, because we really only get one chance to be a kid. And now I'm looking at you and your bio saying at the age of 15, you were diagnosed with cancer. Now, anytime anybody hears the C word, their mind automatically goes to, oh my God, I'm not going to make it. And so you're hit with that at 15. So I want to talk about that. Whenever I saw by way of Kingston, Jamaica, I said, I know there because my wife is from Jamaica. So I think I have driven I have driven all over that island with the exception of one part of it. But I mean, I've driven from Kingston to Negril and back. Wow. I've been Montego Bay, Ocho Rios, Negril, the whole. So I've driven the whole island except for, I believe, the Portland side. I don't think I've driven the Portland side. But and also you're are you still in the Michigan, Detroit area?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So currently a resident of Detroit.
Okay, so you're up there with all that Flint thing that's going on with the water.
Yeah, just an hour away. It's a true crisis going on from the school system all the way to the water system and the corrosion, poison that is affecting people. You know, we have the 5 Great Lakes states, Huron, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, Superior, but our people are treated inferior. And so, you know, having access to fresh, clean drinking water should not be in something that indemnifies the people, but it should provide access to them, and that's not happening. And so, heads have to roll, and that takes place. No
question.
Environmental racism.
No, and that's exactly what it is, because as I've been hearing on various talk show hosts, because I listen to talk show a lot throughout the week, and I've been hearing various commentators say there's a difference between a man-made crisis and one that occurred because of age over time. Because, I mean, a lot of the houses that are made before 1970 or 60 or whatever contain lead in the paint, or maybe the piping systems might have. But that was a conscious choice to switch that water over, knowing full well that lead was in that water.
Exactly. It's truly a conscious decision. And, as we're seeing here with the congressional hearings that are taking place, people have to really wake up and really see oftentimes the people that were put into office are not always good to us or for us. And so we have to exercise our voice as well as our vote and go to those polls and really seek to put the right people in who have a heart for the people.
Absolutely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share some information with our listening audience. Listening audience, I need you to get on every last social media site you're on. Now, I share with you all the time. I have one of those sites where I have like 14 of my various social media sites connected to one. It's called Hootsuite. I have nothing to do with Hootsuite. Don't promote it, this and the other, but I use that. And whenever I put anything in there, it goes to all my Twitter sites, Facebook, and it goes to everything. I don't know if you have an umbrella site like that or not, but if you have to do it one by one, do it one by one, because again, these interviews this morning are too important for you not to hear. So do that while we share this information. And then we're going to resume with our interview with Dr. Eddie M. Connor, Jr.
You have a full-time responsibility. When you aren't using it, be sure it can't get into the hands of curious children, troubled teenagers, a thief, or anyone else who might misuse it. Your family, friends, and neighbors are all counting on you. Remember, always, lock it up. For more information on firearm storage safety, visit ncpc.org. This message brought to you by the National Crime Prevention Council, the Bureau of Justice Assistance, and the Ad Council.
The thought of my sons growing up without me inspired me to quit smoking.
I talked to my doctors, and then I threw away all my cigarettes, ashtrays, and lighters.
I started exercising instead of smoking.
Staying away from alcohol when I was first quitting was key.
I kept on trying, learned something each time.
Do whatever it takes.
No matter how many times it takes.
We did it, so can you.
For free help, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and CDC.
You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley on Brave New Radio.
Yes, indeed you are. This is an extended version of the Reading Circle, what I call a Reading Circle doubleheader, and that's whenever I have two interviews, one in 1 hour and one in the other, and that has occurred this morning, and I am thrilled and excited as they have been going through because they are truly inspirational. And many times on the Reading Circle listening audience, you know that a lot of my guests are women, are females. And this morning, I am excited that I have two gentlemen that both of their messages is about excellence. It's about overcoming. It's about hanging in there and not throwing in the towel despite the obstacles, which Dr. Connor leads me to my first question for you in terms of where did this drive come from for you? I usually start in terms of the writing and the reading and all that. Were these some of the activities you did whenever you were in grammar school? Was that drive always there, or did that come later? And then I want to get into the whole diagnosis at 15. So where did this whole excellence drive come from?
Well, I think the drive came from really being the underdog. You know, we see it as March Madness, and a lot of times, the underdog upsets the prominent team, the Cinderella team, so to speak. And for me, a lot of people didn't think that I would make it. They didn't think that I would overcome crippling disease. They didn't think I'd go to college, and I'm a living witness that the least likely does the most mighty. That being your testimony, your misery being ministry, your mess being a message, your stumbling block being a stepping stone, and God using your setback as a setup for your greatest comeback. And the reason I can say that is because every odd that has been stacked against me, every obstacle that I've had to overcome, injected fuel on the inside of me. It gave me a competitive drive and spirit and energy to use the negative positively. And what I just do is just build on that. And I told somebody the other day, sometimes you just have to send people a thank you card. Send all your doubters a thank you card and just tell them, you know what, I appreciate you for doubting me. I appreciate you for thinking that I was going to give up. I appreciate you for just not even believing in me, because all of that gave me the energy and the inspiration to be what I am today, to do what I do today. Because of you, I thank you. Because I am where I am today, because I use the negative positively. And that's where that energy has derived.
That is such an important message, especially. And again, I don't have any preference for one gender, one way or the other. I don't think men are any greater than women. Women are any greater than men. I don't think black is any greater than white. White is any greater than black, so on and so forth. But at the same time, based on the situation that we find ourselves in, more people need to take on the posture that I heard from Kevin earlier and that I'm hearing from you now in terms of, despite the odds, I'm going to do this. And as you said, the more of you that tell me I can't do it, I'm just going to use that for fuel. And since both of you happen to be black men, that message in too many cases doesn't come across, as too many of our black men, whether it's systematic or whether it's falling into the system or whatever it may be, there's too many of us making our way to the prison walls and too many of us hanging out on the streets. And yet I'm talking to two men this morning that didn't fall into that trap. How did you, and I know you had your haters and those that said you knew, but how did you keep from being influenced by those who was like, man, you know what, bro, it's just easy for me to stand here on this corner. How did you stay out of that? Because you're in Detroit, where I get, Detroit
Right.
is just like the city that I live in. I'm in the third largest city in the state of New Jersey, which is Paterson, New Jersey. Paterson and Detroit, same demographics. How do you not fall into those traps?
That's a very good question. As we can see today, that is a thin line between prison and Princeton, between jail and Cornell and Yale, between a prison house and Morehouse, oftentimes because of systematic, strategic elements that are set up in our communities to provide that pipeline from preschool to prison. But for me, it was a praying mother that really was my ardent person, my ardent voice, and the person who had my back through some various tough times. And oftentimes she became the helicopter mom. She was hovering over me all the time and making sure that I was doing the right thing. And I didn't necessarily grow up with a father in my life. And so that pathway towards deviation from excellence was more apparent than anything. But I just made up in my mind, especially looking at brothers who I was growing up with, going to jail or getting into crime and violence, and whether they were smoking or drinking, I decided my anti-drug or my anti-prison reality would be through sports. And I engaged in a lot of athletics and try to keep my mind on the right path, because I had bigger dreams than the nightmare that oftentimes surrounds young black men in America. And when I began to keep that dream more prominent in my mind than the circumstances that I was residing in, that became the fuel and the energy, and that pushed me to not do 4 years in a prison house, but to do 4 years at a college, to not go to a correctional facility, but to go to a university. And I think one thing that we have to do is we have to have mentors for our young brothers in our communities to let them know, brother, this is not a rites of passage. Jail and incarceration and crime is not a rites of passage, and we have to do more than tell them. We have to show them how to have a positive legal hustle, to really understand that intelligence is the new gangster. And so we've got to have some serious conversations, but also some serious implementations to really pattern a life of positivity in the lives of our young black men.
No question. And the thing that is, and it's thrilling me this morning, that's really got me sitting here on the edge of my seat, is listening to both of you come and share your stories, but you didn't use the various obstacles as an excuse, because you could. And I deal with children every day, and many, or too many, not all of them, and I don't like to generalize, who use the fact that their father is not home as an excuse, to use the fact that their living conditions may not be the best as an excuse, to use the fact that they're labeled special education as an excuse. All these things are excuses not to produce. And yet I'm talking to two men who, in spite of it all, and Eddie or Dr. Connor, in your case, you had a life-threatening one in terms of a terminal illness. None of that kept neither you nor Kevin from doing what you needed to do to get where you are. And that's the message that folks in this listening audience need to get. If you're somebody out there using a whole bunch of things as a crutch, using a whole bunch of things as excuses, these are the interviews. You need to take the words from these two gentlemen this morning to say, you know what, I'm going to get on up off my mat and do what I need to do. Because both of you, that's the other thing I was getting ready to say, both of you referenced God. And the point I was going to make when I was saying I don't favor one gender over, but the truth of the matter is, and when we start talking God and start talking church, most of the time that is the women. When you go to most of our churches today, particularly the black church, it is filled with black women and not too many men. Yet I'm talking to two men this morning that are referencing and giving the credit to God. How do we get that message across in terms of, Dr. Connor, what you were saying, of all the different options and choices we have? How do we insert God into that as well?
Well, I think that we have to show that God really lives within us, and he really inhabits his people. One thing that I believe that has caused a detriment and decline in society is a lack of spiritual enhancement and also morality. And we have seen the decay, we've seen the detriment because people are guided by monetary possessions, guided by selfishness, and not guided by their spirit. And what we've seen is somewhat of a falling away. We've seen a detriment to where our men are not in church. And oftentimes we make God to be some tangible 911 type of figure, that he's only available in emergency, or that it's about my Ferrari versus my faith. And we put tangible things associated with a relationship with God. And I think that we have to lead more with understanding that just like any relationship has to thrive through communication, has to thrive through a development, so also a relationship with God has to derive that way. And one thing is that my love for God is also expressed in my love towards my brother and my sister. How can I say I love a God I don't see, but I hate my brother and my sister that I see every day? And when I understand that God lives within, the image of God is contained in my brother and my sister, despite race, creed, or color, I'm also serving and being obedient to God by my relationship in a positive way towards my brother and my sister, understanding that the diversity is not adversity. When we begin to lead with love in our community and with each other, and we begin to appropriate the forgiveness of God within our own lives, that's when we can repair the breach of what is going on. And that's what's going to pull people back to the church. That's going to pull a millennial generation who is leaving the church in droves more than ever before, to where they see our walk, to where they see that love is conveyed through not just words, but also through our actions. And so it begins with us before we, shout and dance and scream on Sunday. We really have to be pertinent enough to look at the hell that people are catching Monday through Saturday. And it's got to be contained in our love walk towards one another.
You're absolutely right. And again, in both interviews, it's not about you. In Kevin's interview, absolutely, it wasn't about Kevin. And in your interview, it's not about you. And these are things that need to be shared and applied by those of you who are listening. And as Dr. Connor just said, for those of us who are, for lack of a better word, preaching it, we have to not only say it, we have to live it. But again, it is, how do you now move folks away from selfishness into selflessness? Because I noticed, Dr. Connor, one of your books is My Brother's Keeper.
Absolutely.
How do we get folks to embrace that even more? That is not all about you all the time. And in fact, if you really want to get more for you, you need to do more for others, because it's cyclical. The more you do for others, the more is done for you.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's a very pertinent question, simply because Zig Ziglar put it this way. He says, if you want to get what you want out of life, you got to help people get what they need out of life. And that comes from the whole reality in respect to not just being successful, but also being significant. And Dr. King he said the most poignant question is, what am I doing to help somebody else? The old folks will put it this way: if I can help somebody as I travel along, then my living will not be in vain. And I believe we have to get to a reality and make a reality check to where we look at us doing not just for self, but for others. And where that takes place is it takes place in a mental transformation. Because if you're only seeking to do for self, at the end of the day, you'll be left with only yourself.
There you
But
go.
when you begin to change and transition the parameters of your mind to think just beyond you, to think just beyond your bins and your friends, your money and your honey, where you begin to think beyond just that and have a mental transformation, a life shift, that's the whole aspect of maturity. Apostle Paul said, when I was a man, when I was a child, I acted like a child, but when I was a man, but when I grew and developed, I became a man. But I had to put childish ways from away from me. Things are not just going to go away based on you growing up. Because some of us are grown boys. Some of us are still grown
That's right.
girls at 30, 40, 50 years of age. But you have to put away childish things in order to get to a place of maturity that says it's not just about me, but it's about God using me to help somebody else.
For you at 15 to receive a life-threatening diagnosis, what was that like for you? And did that experience now transition you, or were you already on that path and this was just, a bump in the road? Or was it the transforming event that got you to see the things that you're seeing?
Yeah, when I received that diagnosis as a teenager at the age of 15, I thought it was over. I definitely was not thinking the way that I am now. The doctor told me, he said, you have NHL after I was experiencing a number of different chest pains, and they had cut me open and they saw my cells were growing so fast they could see them growing with the naked eye around my heart, trachea, my esophagus, my voice box, the place I'm speaking to you out of now. And he said, you have NHL. And I thought that it was National Hockey League. And, that was my frame of reference, my prior knowledge at that time. But he says, no, you have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I'm like, my first language is Ebonics. I'm still trying to learn English. What is that?
Right.
He goes on to say you have not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4, stage 4 cancer. I'm like, I don't know too much about cancer, but I'm figuring you can't get it till 60, 70, 80 years of age.
Exactly.
Death sentence. And just being a kid and the doctor telling me, don't ask why. He tells me that you're going to have to get chemo and radiation, which I was receiving 5 days a week for 18 months, close to 2 years, lost all my hair. And not just losing my hair, but losing my self-confidence, my self-esteem, was depressed, having thoughts of suicide and giving up. My own biological father never visited me one day in the hospital. The people who I thought were praying for me were literally praying on me. And, everything was stacked. The deck was stacked against me. And, it moved from difficulty to impossible. And I had to fight. If I'm telling you every single day of that ordeal that I felt that I was going to overcome every day and I was positive, I'm lying to you. A lot of difficult days of depression, dismay, and mentally discombobulated. But if it had not been for a praying mother who encouraged me, you got to take off the pity party hat and you have to work. And she told me first 3 letters in cancer spells can.
That's right.
The same situation that you're in is telling you what you can get out of. You can overcome, you can survive, because a knockdown is not a knockout unless you stay down. You got to get back up and get in the fight. And cancer became my fight. It was my biggest obstacle. It was my biggest challenger. But every single day, I just kept swinging. I kept hitting. I kept believing. I kept taking my chemo and radiation, saying, this is one less treatment towards total healing and restoration. And my faith in God and my belief in myself drove me and inspired me to say, I'm going to prove the skeptics wrong. I'm going to rebound. I'm going to overcome this detriment and become determined as a result of it. And, if I'm telling you every single day, as I said, I believed I was going to be positive, or even believe that I would be doing what I'm doing today, I never would have imagined it, to be able to be a writer. And I never wanted to write a book. I never wanted to tell my story at all. I was very embarrassed about what I had gone through. It's just not something popular for a young black kid to have cancer.
Right.
But my embarrassment became a testimony. And I share it as a place of therapeutic advancement to be able to let people know, don't give up. You got to delete the letter T off the word can and turn it into what you can do. You have to look at impossible, put an apostrophe between the I and the M and see it as I'm possible. And that mental transformation will take you from where you are to where you can be, to actualize the greatness and the potential on the inside.
And see, I don't do the show with a pat set of questions. The questions really do come spontaneous based on the conversation. So my questions coming at you are based on what I'm hearing you say, and I'm looking at the titles of your book. And Purposely Prepared to Persevere, that's where the whole story that you share with how I found the can in cancer of what you were just talking about. And I am just, because I am not necessarily a hypochondriac, but it's kind of like, for me, the least little ache or pain, I'm wondering, what is it? And while I may not run to the doctor immediately, it's always something in the back of your mind. Is it something terminal? So I can't imagine being diagnosed with something that is, and as you said, stage 4, and still being able to say, I'm going to beat this and beat it. Because it really is in the attitude. And I was glad to hear you transparent enough to say, no, every day wasn't positive. Because a lot of times when folks are sharing their stories about what they've gone through, they make it appear as if every day was ice cream and cake. And so now somebody that may be heading into the situation or is in the situation may say, well, I can't attain that, because I'm going to tell you right now, I ain't going to be positive every day. But to hear you say, no, there were some bad days, there were some down days, but we still kept the fight going. I think that's the important message here. So,
absolutely, definitely. Mr. Medley, Brother Medley, my life was definitely not in harmony at that time. And oftentimes your situation will mature you. And, you know, it's like the quote that says, you never know about how to be strong until being strong is the only option.
Absolutely. Yeah. And now I'm looking at, okay, so we talked a little bit about My Brother's Keeper, a little bit about Purposely Prepared to Persevere. And then you have Econ, the Icon. Now, the other thing I like is, see, I was a language arts teacher, and one of my degrees is in communication, and I always love a play on words. And I noticed just listening to you talk how you do what I call rhymology. And I noticed how also in terms of the play on words. So you have Econ, the Icon. Let's talk a little bit about that one.
Yeah, that book, and I probably should say a little bit more about My Brother's Keeper. And My Brother's Keeper is all about empowering young males, especially, to really actualize their purpose from boyhood to manhood, and really understanding that thing that Dr. King suggested: if we don't live together as brothers, we'll perish together as fools. And so from that aspect, but prior to that, yeah, Econ the Icon is all about really from pop culture to President Barack Obama, and really is looking at politics, looking at pop culture, and really looking at from a whole landscape of a various number of topics, religion and education. And so I synthesized it in a lot of various quotes about what is going on in our current society and what is going on in our world, and really having that mindset to look at the whole aspect of the word icon. And oftentimes we place the onus on individuals who have money, who have celebrity, who have a certain level of status. But icon is not so much about what has been done for you or how a level of fame that you have achieved, but it's really your ability to serve. Somebody who has overcome obstacles is an icon. A grandmother who's raised 3 children is an icon. A father who stayed in the home and has really raised his children to be a person of standard is an icon. And I believe we have to sometimes redefine certain terminology to not make it so ethereal, but to really make it conceptual, to where it's a level of servitude that is really the most thing that is profoundly significant.
In terms of our kids, our youth, and in both of your cases on your websites, if somebody when they go to your site, they see you finely dressed, looking good, looking well. How do you help folks understand? And I know in Kevin's case, Kevin had an actual picture of the dilapidated house that he grew up in. But how do you get kids to not take on that? Well, it's easier for you to say that because look at you. You know, I look at your webpage, Dr. Connor, and you dressed in a seriously fine suit, and you're looking good with the latest designer glasses, and your hair is cut, and your beard is manicured, and but that's not me. How do I get? And in Kevin's case, it was the same thing. I see your family down there. I see you in a shirt and vest and tie with cuff links, and all. How do you get kids to make that leap in their mind that hey, that can be me?
Yeah, I let them know, hey, that's my New Testament, but my Old Testament is that I'm just a guy who also likes to wear jeans and Timberlands. I like to wear Jordans and just like everybody else. But I let them know that certain things have a certain place, and oftentimes it gets you to a place of maturity, and the whole aspect of dressing for success. Dressing for the place where you see yourself going. And I let them know, just be transparent about my story, but also let them know what is the right way to dress in an interview.
Right.
I have a program called Boys to Books, and mentoring young men through literacy, leadership, and life skill development. The life skill aspect is teaching our young men how to tie a tie. If it wasn't for my grandfather teaching me, I wouldn't have known. I'd have to learn on my own.
That's right.
Many times our young brothers not being taught the right way to present themselves. Many times our young brothers don't know how to wear a suit. They don't have anybody in their life to show them or expose them to a greater opportunities and resources in life. And so we have to let our brothers know it's all right for you to wear your Jordans. It's all right for you, to wear your jeans, but it's a time and place for everything. And certain environments are going to require a different level for you to be able to accompany yourself in. And so I think we have to just expose our brothers to various angles and avenues in life that are greater than beyond just the 9-mile radius view that they have of their own world.
Absolutely.
But that takes fathers, that takes mothers, that takes grandmothers and grandfathers, that takes mentors being present in their life to direct them in that specific avenue.
And see, that question came out of your book, Unwrap the Gift in You, because a lot of our children, whether male or female, and again, it really doesn't matter of race, because depending on where you are, it's not just a black thing, even though in a lot of places it is predominantly that. And when I say black, I'm talking people of color. But a lot of our children have no idea, and Kevin was talking about this in the first hour, of the potential that is already inside of them. And that's why I see here you said learn how to invest in yourself and acquire principles to discover your gifts within. Many of our children have no clue that there's some greatness in them.
Mm-hmm. They don't because oftentimes the communities that they come from or the homes that they come from are broken. They're shattered. Somebody dropped them. Somebody didn't speak a word of life into them. Somebody who they thought would extend hands to heal them and help them wound up hurting them and harming them. And so when you come from a place of being broken, how do you become, as Tupac would say, the rose that grows through the concrete? Because the concrete is the circumstance, but the rose of greatness that I have on the inside of me. And oftentimes life places people in precarious situations to where that they never move into a place of transformation, healing, because all they've come from is brokenness, and they've never found a place to break through that. And that's why I believe that you just can't go through life through parameters of just making excuses, but you now have to come to a place to say, all right, this has happened to me, but I'm not going to play the blame game. This has happened to me. How will I overcome that? Because now it's on me. Now I have to ask myself the question, is there any fight left in me? And when you begin to look within the resources of your soul and dig through the junk, dig through the negativity, through the tears, through the years of decay and dismay, to reach into the abyss and the resources of your soul and pull out something that you didn't realize was in you all along. It's like you wearing your glasses and looking for them. I've had them on me all along. It's like you looking for your phone and you're on it. I've
Right.
already had it with me and on me, but now I have to use it. And oftentimes, the therapy comes through you pushing through the pain and the adversity and the trial and the circumstance for you to unveil to yourself that my life matters. There's two important dates in your life. One is the day that you were born. The second one is the day you realize why you were born. And that why symbolizes purpose. The reason that you're alive, the reason that you're breathing is because you have a purpose. But you can't just exist. You have to live. And to live, you have to overcome every single day. You have to free yourself from the vestiges of your past. You have to say, my past is not a prison because my future is freedom. And when you begin to push through that and become transparent and real with yourself, that's when you begin to unwrap that gift on the inside of you. Everybody is gifted. The tragedy is that many people never open the package.
I know that's right.
What we have to do is open it and free ourselves.
Absolutely, which segued right into the book, Heal Your Heart. It says an in-depth and insightful perspective on the uniqueness of love. Now, both of these information, I keep saying information because it is information. Both of these interviews have been confirmation of, once again, of the road that I am on with the children and the school system that I serve in. And I shared this story on the air, so listening audience, forgive me for repeating it. But a few years ago, Dr. Connor, there was two guys down in New Orleans, and they were doing what they thought was a social experiment. What they did was they printed up hundreds of copies of the word love. They had a white background and red lettering, just said love. And they just went around the city of New Orleans and tacked them up on phone poles and abandoned houses and street signs and any place they could tack them around the city. Because what they were trying to see was just the fact that people were seeing the word. Was it getting into their spirits? And then behaviors would begin to change. When I saw that on the news, I said, I'm going to do that in my school building. And I came back, and and the story broke over the summer, like in the July-August time frame. And I came back at the end of August, and I worked with my technology person and said, I want you to print me 300 signs that say love on it. The same configuration, red letters, white background. And I took those signs and hung them in every classroom and in every hallway and in every office, in the cafeteria. And I just wanted to see for myself, again, just the fact that the teachers and the kids and everybody was just seeing that word love, would it subconsciously get into their spirits? And oddly enough, interestingly enough, vocabulary did begin to change. Behavior began to change because we were now constantly promoting this whole notion of love. And I'm saying all that to say, when I saw your in-depth and insightful perspective on the uniqueness of love, love is the thing that will get us to where we need to be as well. And I see you're talking relationships and marriage, and both of you touched on this whole thing of forgiveness. Talk a little bit about your experiences with how love works and this whole notion of forgiveness.
Yes, and I would come from that perspective that love is not about what I can get. Love is about what I can give.
That's right.
And love is the only thing that you can keep giving and never run out of. You run out of enough cars. You run out of clothes and shoes and money. But love is an endless gift that becomes cyclical and becomes a boomerang effect. What I'm giving off is eventually going to come back to me. And when we have a place to where people begin to lead with love, and not what they have, but understanding that it's about who they are, that places the greatest onus on that. And I would say my place for understanding love emanated from my mother, who has her doctorate degree, Dr. Janice Connor, but she raised myself and my brother through the aspects of education, and she showed me how to love through her actions. I wasn't always the best kid, wasn't always the most respectful kid growing up, but she showed me through that adversity the place of respect. Through her love for me, it caused me to love myself. And oftentimes I didn't love myself. I didn't always love my black skin. I didn't always love who I was because what I had endured and went through, because people who I thought would be with me forsook me. And when I began to really heal and forgive, is when I began to live. You can't really forgive until you live. And that place of forgiveness and that place for love emanated to each other. They became a merging unit to where I eliminated self-hate. And I began, as I began to love myself and appropriate God's love for me, I began to love other people despite where they were in their place. And it wasn't a place of judgment, but it became a place of a love commandment, to where that became the onus and the responsibility that I undertook. And I believe that has to fester into relationships, to where we place a level of value and we begin to invest in ourselves, because oftentimes it may not be somebody's time to date. It just might be somebody's time to wait. And that is, you're not waiting like a person at a bus stop. You're waiting like a person at a restaurant, like a waiter or waitress.
That's right.
You're serving, you're working, you're preparing for what you anticipate on that which will come. And, we have to understand that a person being in your life does not become the credence for the beginning or the end stage of your happiness. Your happiness starts and ends with you.
That's right.
How do you look at yourself? How do you love yourself? How do you find your joy and your peace? Not with putting somebody else down, but with lifting somebody else up. And that can't begin until I have the love that emanates within.
That is so true. That self-esteem and self-love piece is so critical, and in many cases is a missing element. I mean, I am constantly, because I serve in an urban school, and I'm constantly challenging our children. In terms of the self-love piece, you ought to know your history. You've got to learn your history. And when I say history, and again, I'm talking again for most of my children, they're people of color. You need to understand our story, because I share with them all the time. With our Jewish brothers and sisters, they make it very clear: upon birth, never again. And that story is told over and over again. And they come through with that pride and that self-love of who they are as a people. They're not self-hating. And a lot of our children, and they don't even realize that's why they're self-hating, because, as you know, in terms of the system and society, you're almost brainwashed into hating yourself. And you really have to combat that and study and know who you are and see that you've come from kings and queens, and to see the contributions that African Americans and people of color have made, and go all the way back to the pyramids and the Garden of Eden and everywhere else to see the role that we played. So in my view, just knowing our history is a part, and it's funny you were talking about the dating piece. I tell my girls all the time, because I serve in an elementary school, and I always tell them, I said, now look, let me tell you something. When these little tackhead boys come at you wanting to talk to you and get your number and so forth and so on, ask them to see their report card.
Good. That's good.
Ask them, okay, wait a minute, before I give you my digits, let me wait till marking pit's over. Let me see your report card. And I said, let me tell you what that's going to do. That's going to do a couple things for me, because guaranteed, once all the girls stand firm on that and say, well, I can't talk to you unless I see some improvement in grades, all of my boys' grades will skyrocket. That I'm convinced of. Because they're going to do whatever they need to do to try to talk to this little girl. Now, I always tell a little girl, I say, now, you got to be on point too. But there's a time and place for everything in terms of priorities. And I always tell the kids, love yourself first. Just what you just said. You don't need another person to fulfill you. You don't need another person to have them love you. If you love yourself first, and you know who you are about and what you are about, then you will be able to now bring somebody else into your life. So I always tell the kids, look, let's do it. Let's do this right. Get your education. Travel, live on your own for a little bit in your own apartment. This is advice I didn't follow necessarily. Live on your own, travel, see the world. Then if you get your significant other, what have you, then the two of you build together. If you do it out of the order, it could give you some issues. Not to say that you can't do it, they won't have it, but it could give you some issues that you don't necessarily have to go through. And I'm saying all that to say that the self-love is a key piece of that, since we're talking love. And a lot of people think self-love is about being arrogant. They think self-love is about being cocky, but that's not what it's about.
Not at all. It's about being confident.
Yes.
Confident in who you are and who God made you to be.
Absolutely. We've crossed into the 8 o'clock hour. I truly hope those of you who have been listening, whether you're on the computer, web streaming around the world, or whether you're in northern New Jersey on WP 88.7 FM, stay with us. I just need to roll over into the 8 o'clock hour, give you the weather, as well as do what we call the top of the hour things. There's certain things we have to do for the FCC that we have to do as we change over into the hour. So I'm going to do that, but I truly hope you've been with us, because these interviews this morning have been informative and inspirational. And as I've always said to both Kevin and to Dr. Connor, if nobody else is inspired and listening, I am. As I get just as much out of talking to my guests as I do from them being on the show, as my listeners get. So if nobody ain't listening but me and my mother or me and my wife, if no one else is getting anything out of it, I know I'm getting something out of it, just having the opportunity to talk to you two brothers, and the encouragement and the inspiration of what you're giving on these airways this morning. So I'm going to transition into the 8 o'clock hour. We're going to continue on. I'm on the air till 9. Either one of you at this point on can drop whenever you need to, if you need to. Otherwise, we will continue on with this inspirational conversation.
WPSC, Wayne, New Jersey. On the radio, 88.7 FM. Online, gobrave.org. A tune-in radio station. Part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network.
Broadcasting live from Hobart Hall in Wayne, New Jersey.
This is
the innovative.
I think they're really unique.
The fearless.
They have awesome variety.
The kick-ass.
I love Brave New Radio.
The sensational.
I've never heard anything like it.
This is the one and only Brave New Radio.
Straight from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center, here's your local forecast.
Right now in the Wayne, New Jersey area, it's 33.2 degrees. We're working our way up to a high of 49. It's partly cloudy this morning, then becoming cloudy during the afternoon. It's going to be cloudy skies early tonight. Then tomorrow, Sunday, 41 is a high, 29 is a low. Possible snow flurries. We've been having all this 50, 60 degree weather. Now they're talking about possible snow flurries. Small chance, 20% chance. And then on Monday, we're going to have a high of 48, 26 as a low, partly cloudy, and then mostly clear Monday night. And as we rock on into Tuesday, generally sunny despite a few afternoon clouds, high of 54, low of 41. And then Wednesday, 64 as a high. There we go. Back to that 64 again. 41 as a low. Partly cloudy skies during the morning hours. Will become overcast in the afternoon. Mostly clouds on Wednesday night. All right. That rounds out the forecast right here from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. We are in an extended version of the Reading Circle with Marc Medley. Every now and again, I have the opportunity to do that. I'm always grateful to God for the flexibility during the 3 hours that I'm on the air, because whenever we do not do a double or triple interviews, gentlemen, we go into the gospel music, which is the good news in song. But this morning, we're having the good news in words. And one of the things, and I've heard both of you say, Kevin, you and Dr. Connor, is this notion of moving on despite the obstacles, because most of the things that we hear about black men is always negative. I mean, when you're looking in categories, we lead in all the negative categories. We lead in illnesses and diseases. We lead in the prison populations. We lead in the lowest going to college. We lead into, and I know Jenks Morton disputes that college thing. He disputes that, but for the most part, we still lead in all the negative areas. And yet, I'm talking to two men this morning that totally debunks those stereotypes, totally debunks those myths. And the hope is, and the prayer is, that as they go about and they're talking to people, that we're actually changing lives. I'm hoping these interviews this morning that somebody's listening, that life is being changed. What do you now say? And we've talked on it, but as you go now, and Dr. Connor, I see all the different pictures of you going around to schools and everything like that. How do you connect with the kids? How do you connect with them to get them to I'm looking at the boys, the books. I'm looking at it on your webpage. How do you connect with them?
You know, I think that you have to just be transparent. You have to be real. You have to be relevant to where you let our young brothers as well as our sisters know that you just didn't arrive. As Beyonce said, I woke up like this. But there were some times that you had to overcome some obstacles and some situations. You didn't just arrive where you are to where you just crossed the finish line and never ran a race and say, ta-da. And oftentimes we want to scare our young people straight versus love them straight. But when we begin to really just have some relevant, real conversations and not just have a mouth to speak, but have a receptive ear to listen, I think we need to feel the pulse and the tenor of the promise as well as the pain that our young people have, to have a listening ear to hear them, to hear what they want, and to also exude excellence in a way that does not put them down, but also that lifts them up. I think when you're able to relate to them on their level, but also inspire them to reach higher, is where you can really create change. It's not meaning that you let them do whatever they want to do, but you have some parameters, but you also reach them on a level to where you lead with love, but you also have a listening ear. And that's where you're able to make connections.
Absolutely.
You can't really develop and make connections until you begin to foster positive relationships.
Absolutely.
And so that's in the classrooms, and that's in our communities as well.
And see, there's a point you made in there, in that response, because for the most part, we deal in a microwave society. You have kids that honestly think they're going to come out of wherever they are and go straight to the top, no in between. That I'm going to come out and I'm going to be the next Michael Jordan. Well, are you practicing right now? No. I'm going to be the next whoever football top player. Well, are you doing anything right now to set yourself up for that? Do you know any NFL players? Do you practice? Do you play on a football team? No. How are you going to get there? So, I mean, how do we bridge that gap of you're not going to go from sitting on your couch playing video games to CEO?
Yeah. And I think one way we have to bridge that is through letting our young people know, okay, you have the dreams of the NFL, the Major League Baseball, or the NBA. You need to also have a plan B. And that B also has to begin with books. Because when you do, or, go to college, say you do get that athletic scholarship, you're known as a student athlete. You're a student first, athletics second. And so we also have to let our brothers know that even if you don't get to the NBA, there's a possibility that you can still own the team by earning an MBA.
Right.
That's the Master's in Business Administration.
That's right.
You got to let them know that there's more options than just athletics. And then another aspect is that we have to let our people in our community know to when we have a $1.3 trillion buying power, that we, of course, purchase more cars, clothes, expendable items, nail done, hair done, everything did. We have that buying power. If we were to pull our resources together, we would understand that 92% of black millionaires never bounced a basketball. Right. They never rapped on a microphone. They never danced in a video. But they earned their money by being a lawyer, by being a doctor, by being an astrophysicist, by being a judge, by being all these other things that are outside of the parameters of athletics and entertainment. We have to let our young people know that there's greater ways to the top than just a minute microcosm that's painted by mythical images on the media. We have to let them know that there's plenty more options. But like Tavis Smiley said, young people like Kodak Film, all they need is development and exposure.
Absolutely.
If we don't develop and expose them to the resources, they will only be what they see. We have to expose them beyond just BET, MTV, and PlayStation 3. We have to expose them beyond to a world greater than just a 2 or 3 career pathway avenue.
Now, I see, based on your site, you've had the blessing and good fortune to be on the major networks. Have you had experiences where children have seen you on, whether it was NBC, BET, ABC, Fox, whatever, they've seen you on there and has been able to say, wait a minute, I saw you on TV. Have you had that experience?
Oh, yes. Yes, all the time. And it gives them a greater level of respect, of course, but it also, my thing is that it lets them know that you don't just have to be on TV just to show off your body or your clothes, or because you're shooting a basketball or rapping on the microphone, but it's because of you being a contributor to your community.
Right.
Because you've overcome some obstacles, because you've been inspired. And so I like for them to look at me and say, oh, if he can do it, surely I can.
Absolutely.
Because I come from other hardship, just like I come from various avenues in my life, and I can do the same thing. So it's a spark of inspiration, I believe.
Well, absolutely. And again, as I was saying, to see, I'm looking at all these various photos, you and Iyanla, you and Steve, you on various news stations, to see a black man who's not in handcuffs, because most of the time, sadly, and I know, again, I'm very aware of the system. I'm very aware of systematic programming. So oftentimes, and too oftentimes, the only black men you see on TV are black men in handcuffs. And that's why the fact that I'm seeing you here on all these various avenues, again, is an inspiration. And just like you said, if it could happen for you, because that's what drives me. When people ask me, well, why do you want to be a principal of this school? Why do you choose to stay here? Because I'm choosing to stay in the city that I grew up in, which, like I said, is not a far cry from Detroit. And I always tell them what drives me is because, one, I went through this same public school system. I came through these same streets. Now, the only thing that's a little bit different of a variable is the fact I came from a two-parent home. My family was intact. It was not dysfunctional. So that's a major variable. But still, in terms of being in the same impoverished area, going through the same schools, I've been able to travel the world. I have 3 degrees as well, so forth and so on. And what drives me is if it can happen for me, it can happen for you. And part of my purpose is to help it happen for you. And that's what kind of drives me on a daily basis, working with the kids that I serve. And they connect with that and they resonate with that. But that's why I said listening to you and Kevin this morning is just further confirmation that the road that we're on is the correct road. And if either one of you, Kevin is still on the line, but if either one of you are ever in the New York, New Jersey area, give me a holler. You are more than welcome to stop by my school, or we can have lunch or dinner together or something. But all I can tell you is you all are on the right road. I know you're on the right road because you're changing lives. You're helping others.
Absolutely.
And that's what it's really all about, because we talked about this earlier. It really is not about just helping ourselves. We could just help us. We could. But like you said, how you eloquently put it, the one that's going to be just for himself is going to be by himself. That's exactly where it's going to wind up. So I applaud both of you for what you do. Dr. Connor, we're down to about the end of our interview. And as you heard me say with Kevin earlier, you have the opportunity to promote where you're going to be, how folks can get in touch with you, any speaking engagements, book signings, how they can get a hold of your books, your websites, anything you would like to promote. You can do that with the exception of a dollar amount. That's the only thing they don't allow us to do on the air is the dollar amount, because you all can negotiate that offline. But anything short of that, you're willing, you shout out, you have the microphone, it's yours.
Absolutely. I just have to, of course, thank you for the opportunity and the really just the invitation to be able to use this platform, because you're truly a dynamic voice in that Tri-County area and even beyond, because you know that this is the World Wide Web as well, to be able to use your voice and really elevate people's lives. And so I really appreciate you for this opportunity. But I want to also let people know, hopefully you've been impacted by anything that you've heard today. Please feel free to go to my website. I like to say the revolution will not only be televised, it'll be digitized. So please go to my website. It's eddieconnor.com. That's EDDIECONNOR.com. I've got 6 books out there that are resources to really uplift your life, especially with my latest book, My Brother's Keeper. I encourage you to go get that book and get 2 copies, one for you and somebody else to bless with. And I'd love to be able to come to your school, to be able to come to your church, your workshop, your community center, wherever you are, and really give a word of inspiration and change and transformation to be able to lift your life. So again, that number, that website rather is eddieconnor.com, EDDIECONNOR.com. And if you also would like to reach out to me via telephone, that number is 313-469-1947. Again, that's 313-469-1947. 1947. Again, Brother Medley, you're putting people's lives in harmony. And so really appreciate you again for this powerful platform as you use your pertinent and powerful voice to really change and affect transformation of the lives of the masses. So God continue to bless you and the work that you do.
Well, thank you. I wish God's continued blessings for you. And Kevin, I think, are you still on the line as well? I know I told him if he was going to hang on and put his phone on mute. I'm not sure if he stayed on or not. Maybe he went on to the computer version. But I wish God blessings on both of you as well, because, again, it is about making life better for others. And the fact that you rose early to take the time with us, it is recorded, and I will be converting it whenever I get home, when I get a chance to, in terms of boiling it down to a YouTube link and an MP3 link. So I will email that to both of you, your respective copies, and you can do whatever you'd like with it. It's yours. Once you get the email and you get the link, you can put it on your sites or blast it out to people, because I'll be blasting it out on all of my social media sites as well. But these interviews this morning have been a true blessing for me. And I'm going to say it now, I'm going to reiterate it. If it has been a blessing for anybody else, it's been a blessing for me, because we know that our work is not in vain, that we are using what we have to try to get the word and the message across. And not only are we talking it, we are living it. And so for all of our people out there, are young and not so young, the things that we're talking about is so critical. And if you don't believe me, just watch these debates. Just watch what's going on here in this presidential race. This is one of the worst races I've ever seen since I've been on the planet. But you just watch what's going on. See how things are going on. If it's ever a time that the things that we're talking about is needed, it is now. So I applaud you all in the work that you do. Both of you are in areas that is sorely needed. Kevin was down in the Atlanta, Georgia area, and Dr. Connor's up in the Detroit area. I'm here in the Paterson, New Jersey area. There are 3 areas that what we're talking about is needed. So I thank you, and again, I applaud you, and God bless you, and keep on, as my mother can say, keep on keeping on.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like the old folks say, when I rose this morning, I didn't have no doubt.
That's right.
And there's no doubt that this has been a dynamic show, and you are truly a dynamic brother, no doubt about it.
Well, thank you. Same back at you. Like I said, if you all are in the New York area, just give me a holler. You got my email address. I'll email you my cell number, and just let me know you're in town. We can hook up.
Please do, brother. I will definitely holler at you when I'm up in the Big Apple.
All right, now.
Sure will. All right, now.
Have a wonderfully blessed day.
All right, you too, brother. Appreciate you again.
Yeah.
All right, you too. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Well, now see, that's the end. Man, you talk about, as he said, a dynamic reading circle this morning, and all of them are, because I love all of my shows, but I have met some of the most wonderful people over the 15 years that I have been on the air. And when I say wonderful, I mean people that's been all over the planet, people that's been all over the place, all kinds of, like, if you go to Eddie's website, the brother been everywhere. NBC, BET, ABC, Fox, Steve Harvey, CBS, PBS, The Word Network, Dr. Eddie M. Connor Jr. He's pictured with Steve Harvey. He's pictured with Iyanla Vanzant. He's pictured with some local area hosts on news programs as well as in schools. So it's been all over the place. If you go to Kevin's website, as I said, you heard his story. You'll see the house that he was talking about, and then you'll see his beautiful family right under. And both of them said, people did not believe we could do it. People did not. They cast us and counted us out, that we were the underdogs. We were the outcasts. We were the outliers. We were not expected to do it. And because we weren't expected to do it, that's why we did it. So you can't help but respect that. And then they're trying to show others how they can do it too. Because that's the key to this thing. It's not just about me. I share that with the teachers all the time. Look, this is not about you. This is not about you as the adult. You have yours. This is about us helping these children get theirs, regardless of how they come to us. And I'm one of the biggest proponents ever of saying the parents need to do their thing. Parents need to parent. They do. But the truth of the matter is we get a lot of kids that come to us just like Kevin was describing. They come to us only to be able to eat lunch or breakfast or snack. They come to us only to be able to use a bathroom, to be able to drink clean water. because now we got water issues going on everywhere. The Flint thing done kicked everything off everywhere. Now they talking about in Newark, we had the situation. I know they did tests in our school, and thank God our school passed. We got a thumbs up, a clean bill of health on our water. But now you got that whole thing. So some kids are coming to get what they don't get at home. They're coming to these school buildings to get. And some of that even is that word we talked about, love. Some of our children are coming to the building, to the schoolhouse, to get the love that they ought to be getting at home. The love that should be shown to them by their parents, they're coming to the school to get from their teachers and their principals and so forth and so on. So these two interviews this morning were extreme. I mean, I always tell you all, when that alarm go off at 4:20 on Saturday morning, I'm like, oh. And I get myself together and make my way to the studio. But by the time I get ready to roll out of here at 9 o'clock, I am on cloud 50, not cloud 9. I done surpassed, matter of fact, cloud 100 on a morning like this morning. So I am, for the last half hour or so, we're going to go ahead and put on the gospel music. But boy, talk about two interviews that I will remember. These two, I'll remember both of them, and they just happened to fall on the same day. No, they didn't just happen to. That's how God designed it.